Jose. Peter Martin.
Sierd DeJong.
Bill Lake.
Marilyn Kent.
Sher Leetooze. That network that you used to have. And that's a shame.
A lot of it was done through the churches too.
Yep, yeah.
That was basically your hub.
Well, not only that, but you knew everybody in
Yeah.
town. You knew everybody.
Exactly.
And everybody was ready, willing, and able at the drop of a hat if there was something needed for a funeral or a baptism, or it didn't matter what.
You just went
And there you were ready to do it.
Years ago, because the house my dad grew up in back on our farm, just against George, they moved that two-story house down to Bulls.
Yeah.
In 1929, across those hills. And
How did they move it?
well, they have to use horses and rollers.
They did, eh?
Yeah.
That's the only way they could do it.
Yeah.
And it's rolling land. I don't know how to
I
do
know,
it.
I
Geez,
know.
to get the hills, they'd have to have
I was
horses
gonna
pulling
say
back
this.
and horse pulling ahead.
A big galley,
Oh,
Yeah.
gully there.
and sold for $200. Remember that?
Was it?
$200.
I never heard that.
Sold for, yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Red,
Let's go back to those days.
Red said it took them 3 months in the wintertime to do it.
And, yeah.
And the house is still standing, you know, it's still re-erected, or it's there, still there, yeah.
Good Lord.
Imagine if you tried to propose in 2024 to move a house like that, and they would tell you all the reasons it's impossible, and meanwhile they did it with just some horses and some rollers.
That's right.
I can't imagine. Are there any Newcastle legendary stories that people have told, or characters that have come up over and over again?
Oh
over
yeah,
the
there are,
years?
especially sports. There were so many different sports figures that could have gone on to national prominence and just said, no, I'm happy being here
Well,
on
the
Newcastle.
ball team that won the Canadian, or the Ontario championship, and we're not sure yet who paid for it, but the ball team and everybody that was involved in it were given a trip to New York. And I think Murray Patterson must have been one of the ones in that.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, one of the names that comes to my mind that, and Mino is talked about him a lot at one point. He played shinny, which is street hockey, and so he became Shinny Moise.
Sitting on it, yeah.
And I guess he was good at it, and he could have been
Yeah.
Toronto Maple Leaf superstar, but didn't want to. And so, I mean, we got lots of people like that, ball players and hockey players, that kind of went down in history locally, and nobody else ever heard of them.
But they still live on. 'Cause
Oh, they do.
you know,
They do. And our files over here are full of people like that. Yeah. Singers, actors, musicians. There's one fellow in the cupboard over here, and we've got his awards, his medals from the CNE. You know, we had
That's
a
the Waltons.
yeah. I mean, we had a lot of very talented people, and if you want to know about them, you come into some place like the Historical Society.
So many Dutch people
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
in this area that it was just,
Yeah, Bowmanville was full of Dutch immigrants too.
Can you explain that to me? Because the Dutch factory is huge. I mean, that's a huge part of the history of the last 100 years in
Yeah.
Clarington. Why here?
They were all Holstein. They were cattle people. They like to work on the Holstein farms.
Right. So that makes sense. Dairy farms, you know.
Yeah.
Right.
All these, most of the people from there, they were farmers. And even like my dad, he was a carpenter, worked for a big lumber mill. And when the war ended, and then Soviet Union, with its, what do you call it, started to go on, you know. So my dad said, I'm not going through another war. So he had a choice of going either Australia or Canada. So he knew people in Canada that were here already, friends of his, and he said, come to Canada, that's the place, and so he did. That's where,
So
seven kids and 2 adults, and
wow.
here we come to Grafton.
And they had to live on a farm for 1 year
1 year, yeah. Same
before
as that.
they did something
I
else.
remember Brewster too, and he was
Yeah.
a shoe repairman.
Yeah, John, I know, well, he went to school with me.
Yeah.
John did,
So everyone had to come almost like on a farm visa and work on a farm, and then you could kind of reintegrate into whatever you've done before.
Well, that's
Well, you see, I think it depended where you went, because if you went Canada at large, after the war, we were still very rural, very agricultural. And if you went to the cities, no, you went to industry. But
Right.
if you went to anywhere else in Canada, it was all rural.
Yeah.
You wouldn't believe the difference in the face of the nation from the end of World War II to now, because before that, very little had changed from the days of the first settlers. It was all very agricultural, very rural. And if you had communities, you had very small communities like Orono or Kirby, and you didn't have big centers. And now everybody's getting big. The face of the nation just totally changed after World War II. The face of the whole world changed after World War II, but we weren't exempt. We changed here too. So when you came as agricultural people to this area because there wasn't much else. It just wasn't. When I was a kid, even when I was a kid, we lived on Grandview Street. And as far as we were concerned, we were out in the boonies. And if you went much further east, you fell off the face of the earth because there was nothing out there. And the day that Dad brought us out to Curtis to show us the piece of land he bought, my God, Dad, take it, don't go too fast, the road's gonna end, you know? and we didn't know where the heck we were gonna end up. And there was nothing past Town Line. And where all the shopping is there at Town Line Road, that was all little old houses. Been there 100 years.
There was no 401 past Oshawa until after the war. I
remember walking from Grandview Street to Town Line to an old lady who had a house just about where McDonald's is now at Town Line. And you would go to her back door, and her back porch was a little shop. It wasn't very big. And in it she had all kinds of little goodies, and I would buy, it was the only place I could find to buy sesame seeds. And I loved toast with peanut butter and sesame seeds. And the only place I could find sesame seeds was in her back porch. And I was very sad when that house was ripped out and they started building stores. Yeah. But so things are totally different from when I was a kid, just in this area. And there used to, if you see a stand of pine trees, 3 or 4 pine trees together, you know darn well there used to be an old house in there. You can just feel it in your bones.
That and lilac bushes.
That and lilac bushes, yeah.
Every place had a lilac bush.
Every now and then you'll come across a subdivision where somebody's backyard has 3 pine trees in it, great big tall pine tree. There was an old farmhouse there.
Isn't that?
It's yeah. So the face of the place is constantly changing, and the stories, I guess, are constantly changing about experiences with all that change. So even talking to newbies like Peter, I'm sure in the 3 years or 4 years that you've been here, you've seen a difference in some of the areas.
Yes,
Yeah,
not huge change, but.
well,
yeah,
no, in a
this-
3-year period, the change might not be huge, but it warrants a story
Yep.
of what used to be at that corner and now it's gone because they've ruined it to put in a whatever. Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah, well, they ruined Newcastle when they put this in,
What's this?
that big subdivision there.
Oh, yes, yes, of
What
course.
about the one
Well,
going
they-
Yeah,
there?
that's something to do.
They ruined Newcastle when they put the first subdivision in, which is
Or
where he
something.
is.
Down where you are, years ago, I was over there with the bulldozer leveling off.
There you go.
Years ago.
So every year, there's a change somewhere that warrants a story. And we may never keep up to it. We may never
And
hear all
that's
this.
what I said to you when I came in. I said, you've got all of this material that you're still trying to kind of get into the system, but every single day there's more history being added
Exactly.
to what you do.
Exactly.
There's one thing
Well-
about all the proofreaders will soon be gone, you won't have to worry about it.